So we finally have the first rate hike in 3 years. Interest rates were raised for the first time since 2018, and the market pretty much took it in stride. It's not to knock on Jerome Powell and his press conference. I mean, look, he didn't crash the market, which was good. He didn't blame Putin for February inflation like Biden did, which was good. And he didn't say anything about inflation being transitory. So, 3 out of 3. Now, look, on the serious note, we're looking at 0.25% rate hike. Now, markets have been ready for this. And I got to give credit when credit is due. The Fed basically deserves a lot of respect. They made it a very soft landing. Nobody was surprised, and the market pretty much took it and just enjoyed the ride. Now, the Fed, when credit is due, we have to give them the credit. They did a good job massaging the market into this. Now, the real question remains is how much of the next interest rate hikes are priced in, because that's a whole different enchilada, and I'll explain. Basically, we're looking at 5 or 6 more rate hikes this year in 2022, meaning we're going to end 2022 with anywhere from 1.75 to 2% interest. That's right now a given. The fact is that we just saw 0.25 puts us on this course to 2% by end of year. And the real question, how much of that is priced into the market? That's a question I don't know. Nobody knows. But let me tell you something else. That is not going to be enough. And I'm not talking about the 0.25. I'm talking about the 2%. Look, there's a very well-known rule, and the economists here will agree or disagree with me in the comments. Let's see. It's called the Taylor rule. The Taylor rule, just to keep it simple, basically says if you measure the difference between what is accepted inflation, which is 2%, and what you actually have right now, which is right now 7.9%, let's just say 8 for simplicity. That means you have a gap of 6% between your accepted and your actual inflation. For every percentage point, that means you have 6, you need 2% of interest to combat and stop inflation. Meaning that right now, today, we need 12% of interest. Now, look, I'm going to be honest with you. 0.25% in this market is pretty much like saying, well, I just ate, a whole bucket of ice cream and like 8 slices of pizza. But you know what? I'm going to have, a sugar-free soda. My guy, the sugar-free soda isn't going to save you from whatever garbage you just put in your body just a second ago. And I'm one to know about this sort of thing because this kind of scenario played out in my house more than once, including the sugar-free soda. You have bigger problems. And in our case, the bigger problems are not really the sugar-free soda, are not really the 0.25 or the 2% interest. Is the fact that the market needs to see double-digit interest to make it out of this inflation, because inflation is definitely not transitory. Now we know this as a fact. We also know that oil prices are going through the roof. We've seen 130 already, right, just 2 weeks ago, and now we think that $100 per barrel is not that high. But at $100 per Brent, we're talking for a lot of inflationary pressure. When energy becomes so expensive, $100 a barrel, that puts massive inflationary pressure on the market. Now, we don't know exactly what's going on in China with the new COVID variant and any supply chain pressures that might put or any decline in energy consumption that might put. So let's just put that to aside until we know more information from China. But with these energy prices, we're looking at more inflation. And the question is, how can we bridge that gap from 0.25 to 12%, which is where we have to be? Now, look, you obviously can't just, slam the economy into a wall. That's not good. Raising interest rates to 12% right away is going to crash the economy. Not a good idea. Now, the problem is we really can't. And that's the big secret. Right now, we have 120% of GDP to debt. That's a massive ratio. We have 1.2x debt compared to GDP. Now, look, that means a lot of dollars are going right now to service this $30 trillion of debt. In fact, last year we paid $560 billion in interest payments, and that with interest rates pretty much close to zero. You understand how much money we're talking about? 560 billion just on interest. That's more than the combined worth of Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and Warren Buffett. All of them together are worth about 500 billion. So you have to understand that for every 1% that the Fed is going to hike, we're going to pay 200 billion in interest payments to service that debt. It's a lot of money. Right now, they just did a minimal 0.25%. It's not that bad. But as we get closer to 1%, it's going to start being painful. And if you just go back to a minute ago, I told you we're probably looking at 12% if you really want to fix this. So what's going on right now? The Fed has to communicate as if they have free will to do whatever they want, when in fact they don't. Until the government fixes the problem, as far as finding solutions to handle this national debt, they can't really raise interest beyond, quarter percentage points here, a few quarter percentage points there. They can probably go all the way up to 2% by end of year, but at that point, they're going to be locked out. The government is the one that needs to find solutions because it needs to allow the Fed to do what Paul Volcker did in the 70s. Now, I'm not saying they need to raise 20% interest, but I'm saying they need to be able to be at 3-4% today at minimum, which they can't. That means lowering energy prices. We have to work with OPEC to increase supply to lower the prices of energy. Until that happens, we're pretty much screwed. That means supply chains improvement. We gotta make things move faster. These shortages are increasing prices. We have to take control of the wage increase. It's insane. Cost of labor is going through the roof. We can't battle inflation with that. We have to start working out the thing that we basically created ourselves, which is a massive money supply in the system. We have to eat through that. We have to increase GDP, so we increase more tax collections. Because you increase tax collections, you can actually pay for servicing the debt. Now, that is just the beginning. You have to roll over some of the debt from the variable, cheaper interest to the more expensive interest rates that are custom when you go 30-year. So when you push more debt towards long-term fixed, you might take a hit, pay a little bit more or a lot more, but you become immune to interest rates increases. So there's a lot of stuff the government needs to start working on to allow the Fed to do their job. And right now, none of this is being done. And that's the real problem. That's the Haagen-Dazs and the pizza. These interest rates on their own are meaningless without actual solutions from the government. And that's why I think the entire debate on mainstream media is lacking, because nobody's talking about that point. What's the government doing as far as allowing the Fed to raise interest rates? Right now, they're locked out. Because look, if the Fed raises interest rates up the wazoo and the government didn't solve these problems, it just means we need to print much more money. We need to print much more money. We're flooding the market again with more dollars, causing more inflation. So we really ain't really solving anything. Think about it. Now, look, it's still a nice progress. At least we do have that crossing of the threshold of actually raising interest rates for the first time in 3 years. We've managed to do that. The market didn't crash. Hallelujah. Now, it's time to get to work, the real work. That's not going to be easy. Now, let me know below what you guys think. And as always, if you want to support this channel and enjoy these sort of videos, because, they're not really that monetized. I mean, nobody really likes to talk about macroeconomics, only geeks like me and you. You can support the channel by joining as a channel member by clicking on the button next to the subscribe button, or joining our Patreon. It's $5 per month, and you'll be supporting the channel and joining our Zoom calls. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next Zoom call we have if you join. If not, see you in the next video.